that really only applies to the dislocated worker population. So what we did is change the registration screen so it only applies to those that have a program type of DW or dislocated worker. Okay, so you'll see the field name in the second column, and then on the right you're going to see each program type. So DW, dislocated worker, adult, and then we have 2 new program types, and we'll talk more about those today, but I do want to tell you what the program types are and what they mean, so this table makes sense to you. YTHSCHN is school, youth, no. So in other words, an out-of-school youth. Okay? And then on the right column of table 3, we have the YTHSCHY, and that indicates that somebody is in school. So youth, school, yes is what that stands for. Okay? And a lot of you Apex users will probably find that more useful than a lot of the end users in the room. But just so you know, the very right column is for the in-school youth, and then the second column on the right of table 3 is for out-of-school youth. Okay, and then here's the new WIOA registration screen. Again, you'll see it's broken into a series of different tabs, and the number of tabs is different based upon the program that you are enrolling your individual in. So the first tab is the contact information. You're going to be familiar with most of the data fields that are found on that tab. And then next is personal information, and that's the same data fields as what is currently collected in the WIA registration process as well. And then economic status, again, that's the same fields that we currently collect for WIA. Veteran, all the fields related to veterans and their service are located in the veteran tab. And then assistance. There are, now for adult and dislocated worker, there are 2 new fields under the assistance tab. They are both optional fields, but the first one is called high poverty area, and that's a yes/no indicator. And then the next one is a free/reduced lunch, and again, that's a yes/no indicator. And then next is barriers. Quite a few changes on the barrier tab. Some of them are what you currently collect now, but there's also some new data fields. The first new data field is long-term unemployed. That is a required field. We have older individual, which is an optional field. English language learner, that is simply a new label. Right now it is called limited English, and it will continue to be called limited English on WIA legacy screens, but the new language is the English language learner. And then current/prior foster child, right now it's simply foster child. And that's also a required field. Okay, and next is the education status. Those are the same fields that you collect on the WIA registration screen. Now, special initiative indicator, that was getting quite large, okay? So with the WIA screen, it was quite a bit of, I guess, extra space. So what we did with WIOA is got rid of the ones that are outdated. So, for example, there was something about GFGP 2008 on there that's just old. So we got rid of it, and we don't need to collect that anymore for registrations moving forward. So therefore, we have removed that and highly condensed the special initiative indicator section to the fields that we only need to collect moving forward. Yes? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. Then what's that mean? How long? Yep. Sure. Sure. With the new fields that Bernice mentioned, basically we have not received official definitions on those. We anticipate receiving official definitions on those, and the WIA section will be releasing guidance on that, the official definitions in the very near future. Go ahead. Good question. And then the miscellaneous tab.
Paula, sorry.
Scared me.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Before we go on, Krista, as far as the data validation aspect of that, I think within new fields, and we're encouraging or requiring the data collection there, yet there's no guidance on whether or not that field will be subject to data validation or what documentation is required. I think that was part of Bernice's question. In absence of having that specific information, what's the best way for the MWAs to proceed in trying to make sure they get documentation for these things? So Bernice, since this session is recorded, you should probably hold on to the recording of that just for 3 years from now.
Thanks, Krista. Okay, so back to the adult and dislocated worker registration screen. The last tab is the miscellaneous data fields, and the only one that's required on there is relative to the WIOA admin. I know a lot of you use the region code in some of the optional data fields, so just so you know, they're found on the miscellaneous tab. Yep. Okay, and I mentioned only certain data fields show on registration screens according to the actual type of program. So here's an example. You have the adult registration screen is broken into 9 tabs, where the dislocated worker is broken into 10 tabs, with the extra one being the DW section, and that includes the eligibility section for DW. So for adult and youth, it's just not going to be there, okay? But for dislocated workers, we do need to make sure that they're eligible for the program. So on the left, you'll probably see the eligibility criteria for dislocated workers that you're familiar with now, where on the right, you'll see how it's going to be for WIOA as of July 1st. All of the eligibility criteria that's in the WIA section is still in the WIOA section. So for example, like the new number 2 combines the old number 2, 3, and 6. But it's broken into 2A, B, and C. The old number 4 is the new number 3, and so on. So it's really been rearranged and reordered. There is a brand new dislocated worker eligibility criteria, and that's number 5. And I'm going to read that to you. But what it says is, spouse of a member of the armed forces on active duty who has experience of loss of employment as a direct result of relocation to accommodate a permanent change in duty station of such member. Okay, so a brand new eligibility criteria is listed as number 5. You'll also see some new fields that are at the bottom of the section on eligibility. The old date of dislocation used to be at the top. We've moved that to the bottom, and we are changing that to a required field. Right now it's optional, but it will be required with WIOA. And then we also have 4 new fields, or 5, sorry, related to the employer of dislocation. Now those are optional fields, but it's the employer of dislocation, address, city, state, and zip. All optional. The only one that's required is the date of dislocation field. Any questions on the new eligibility? Okay. Okay, so some of you are probably thinking, well, how do I print this wonderful thing? Okay. So to easily print the WIOA registration screen, you're probably familiar with the View WIA button, how it is now. The View WIOA is the easy way and the recommended way to print the registration screen. This is how it is now, and it's an old text screen. It's broken into sections. It's not aligned very good. It's not very pretty. And how it is now, it's more organized. It's prettier. But most importantly, it displays the data dynamically. So what that means, it's only designed to show the fields that you fill in on the registration screen. Okay, so let's say, for example, we have a person who's not a veteran and a person who's an eligible veteran. Okay, so on the side that's not a veteran, you simply see veteran status of no. Okay, and that's it. But then on the right-hand side, you see the veteran status of yes, eligible veteran, and then you see all the rest of the fields that are related to the veteran themselves. Okay, the similar method works with dislocated workers. If you have a dislocated worker, then the dislocated worker and its eligibility will appear, where if you have an adult, the dislocated worker eligibility section will not appear. Even by maxing out all of the screens, it still neatly prints on 2 pages. Wrong one. Okay, any questions on the registration screen before we move on? Yes? I know they're working on that currently. Sure. Nancy asked whether the printed WIA registration form will be done by July 1st. And I know they're working on that now. Yeah, I'm sorry, Wioa. Thank you, Krista. Yes? Uh-huh. Yes. The question was, like on the previous screen, here we have not a veteran and an eligible veteran. The question was on the form, will all of the fields appear on the form? And the answer is yes. All the fields will appear. Just on OSMIS, it's displayed dynamically, so they only appear if they apply to your customer. Any other questions on the registration screen before we move to funding? Okay. So the funding source screen is similar to the registration